coming back with another bullseye of a tutorial here today on the channel. I wanted to show y'all how to get them dope SoFaygo vocals. So if you guys do like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If y'all want to get the preset, check it in the pinned comment down below. So suggest more artists if you guys want to keep seeing these videos, and let's get to this SoFaygo breakdown. Let's go right now.
Best friend, flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my kicks when I step in. Been in the car with my dead friends. Best friend, flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my kicks when I step in. Been in the car with my dead friends.
Okay, so that was me trying to do my best impression of SoFaygo. I really like that song by him a lot. And yeah, he's a relatively new artist. He came up on the scene, you know, I feel like what, 3 years ago? He's a dope artist. So with SoFaygo, first thing I want to talk about is his auto-tune sound. So a guy like SoFaygo, I feel like his voice is a lot higher, and he's hitting a bit of higher notes. So, you know, I like a situation where I'm using a good amount of retune speed, 7, and then the humanizer being 10, because it still feels very natural with SoFaygo. It doesn't feel too robotic, especially when he hits his high notes. So as I'm setting the auto-tune, I'm listening to the high notes specifically of SoFaygo, just to make sure that, you know, that specifically doesn't have too much auto-tune. So sometimes I like to listen to a certain part of the vocal where the rapper might be singing the most, then set the auto-tune from there to make sure it's natural throughout.
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my kicks when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends.
All right, after that with SoFaygo's vocal, I actually use the clipper as well. So this is another dope thing that I like to do a lot when I'm trying to get that heat, Ken Carson, rage type of vocals. You know, SoFaygo specifically feels like he has that same type of sound, but more of an ambience type of sound, like singing, a little bit more space, you know, ethereal type of sound to him. So I use the clipper, but I only used it on the vocal, you know. So if I was using FL Studio, I would use the FL Studio clipper for this, but this is a great way to get a little bit of that honey, habanero, spicy Cheetos, hot sauce on the vocal that, you know, guys like Yeet and Ken Carson, they have that sound, that auto-tune that has a nice little bit of a porcupine type of sharpness to it. So I use the clipper just on the vocal. So I prefer to use the clipper on the vocal over the whole master fader. That's what people do sometimes. They put the FL clipper on the whole master fader and the whole mix is distorting, but you can do it in a better way. You could just only clip the vocal to get some of that.
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my kicks when I step in. Been in the car with my dead friends. Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my kicks when I step in. Been in the car with my.
So putting a clipper on the vocal is more of a way of texture. How do you want to make the vocal feel? It feels a little bit more like sandpaper. It makes the vocal feel a little bit more ashy, a little bit more dry and rigid. Okay, so that's a great thing that Ken Carson and all those rappers like to do to get a texture, you know? So it's not always about the sound, it's about how it feels too, you know? It has a little bit of harshness, but a digital clipping type of harshness. So let's look at the preset, with and without.
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my kicks when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends. Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my kicks when I step in. Been in the cut with my. Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my kicks when I step in. Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my kicks when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends.
All right, so, you know, that's why it's kind of more like a situation where I'm keeping my vocal chain clean, but then I'm using the clipper to bring in a little bit of the grittiness, you feel me? So the french fries is coming on the plate, and then I pull out the Tabasco, and I pick how much I want to dump onto the fries with the clipper, you feel me? So for very first thing with somebody like SoFaygo, trying to keep it clean, knowing that most of the, you know, the dirtiness and the rage, aggressiveness is coming for the clipper, I use the SSLE channel because he's singing. I want it to have a little bit of warmth and a little bit of passion to his vocals. So of course I rolled off just a little bit of bottom. Usually people who are hitting higher notes, they can't generate that much low end in their voice, and on top of that, his voice isn't really too, you know, big bodied and everything like that and thick. So I only rolled off like 100 on the filter, I did a little bit of gating too, because when you start to do the clipper, you start to introduce distortion. You're gonna start to bring up that low level noise. You feel me? That mosquito frequency. That's what I call it. That bug frequency. So most importantly thing too, just bringing out a high shelf, just helping tilt hit the upwards frequencies of his vocal, the higher note a little bit up higher into the de-esser. We did do a little bit of compression on SoFaygo, and I like that VCA on that SSLE because it brings a little bit of bite, a little bit of aggressiveness. So I used the clipper to get a little bit of hot sauce. Now I'm going to use a little bit of, the compressor to put a little bit of jalapeno on the dish that we cooking up, which is his vocal.
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Bitch, flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends. Flying.
All right, after that, we had the de-esser going in there, and the de-esser was not doing too much. With SoFaygo, I actually did a notch at around 4.5K, and this is a move that I do a lot on my personal template, but this is really dope if you know you're going to be using the high shelves to, get a lot of brightness. If you know you got other plugins that are going to do the brightness like fresh air and all that stuff like that, maybe in the very beginning of the chain, you might want to hit it with a notch at like 4.5K, because usually that kind of like everybody's vocal kind of has like that really 4.5K, that high mid-range. I don't know, for everybody's voice, it just kind of has this harshness to it, but it's doing like a little notch, like notching like 2 dB, and that starts to create like this warm type of focus, specifically, and I'm bringing in a lot of breathiness with the high end. So yeah, the de-esser wasn't working too much. I think maybe like a few dBs.
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends.
Most importantly, the de-esser is only working on words that actually have S's. So that's another thing too, kind of getting that situation under control. Sometimes you can go in to your vocal and like highlight certain parts like this, and boom, and like, clip it down, or you bring it to another track and you bring the volume down before it even hits the chain. And that's a great gem to help your de-esser work a lot smoother. You feel me? Let me bring in them adlibs too, because them adlibs sound just like SoFaygo. So after that, we have the C4 from Waves using the pop vocal preset. Everybody named mama know I love using this. And yeah, just the default preset. I think I started to pull up the threshold a little bit because I didn't want to clamp down on the mid-range. That's a lot of the body of his vocals. So I love pop vocal preset to bring in some brightness, but then sometimes I will, play around with the threshold to make sure I'm not clamping down too aggressively on the mid-range.
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends. Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends. Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my.
So with a rapper like SoFaygo, you got to already start thinking about the seesaw. You're hearing that his voice is kind of already bright. His voice don't have no deepness in it. And then you're hearing that he's also hitting da 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 da. He's also hitting the notes. You, as an engineer, you got to pay attention to the melody of the rapper. Like usually higher notes, right, have less low end frequency. You feel me? They usually have higher end frequencies. You feel me? They usually, it's hard to sing so bright and generate low end deepness. So I'm already looking at the seesaw, how the seesaw is tilted. Okay, so the skinny kid is kind of on top of the seesaw right now, and the fat boy is sinking, right? So I'm trying to preserve as much low end as I can. So then that brings me to my SSL comp, and of course, boom, I hit the analog button because that's bringing in some transformer body. So I'm bringing the body back in to SoFaygo's vocal, but I'm not doing it via a boosting EQ. I'm doing it via an analog component, which is the transformer inside of an SSL comp. So it's help pushing that mid-range forward. And also transformers have a way of smoothing out the top as well. So look at me, because I understand the parts, I can think less, I can work less by just knowing, okay, that transformer got that body in it and they got a little smooth top. So it's gonna help SoFaygo, you feel me?
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead. Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead.
So mostly just using this SSL comp for dirty gain, that dirty volume, you feel me? On your DAW, if you push a regular fader, Like this, that's the clean gain. You feel me? That doesn't have a tonal color or anything like that to it. You know, it doesn't have no seasoning that comes with it. It doesn't have no extra flavor or no Kool-Aid, you know, that thing that comes with it. But when you use an analog plugin and you're not really compressing, but you're just using the makeup gain, you're adding in that dirty gain, that dirty volume, a little bit of Himalayan spice and peppers, a little bit of barbecue marks that's starting to give a new flavor to the vocal. Okay. After that, we have the REQ. I didn't roll off too much bottom with SoFaygo's vocal because, like I said, okay, before I even started mixing, I'm looking at the seesaw like, okay, he don't got that much deepness in his voice, so I can't just be cutting and cutting and cutting off low end. So let me preserve that body. Let me preserve the honey buns. Let me preserve the meat and the fat on the vocal. You feel me? So I'm keeping that in there. I didn't roll off too much bottom, and then the shape as well, the shape of the cue as well. It's helping that low end extend. You feel me? And a most important thing with SoFaygo too, I would definitely say is like doing like a little high cut like this at like 18K. You can't necessarily hear, you know, those frequencies anyways. So they're taking up space, right? And when they're taking up space, and you just do like a little high cut all the way at the tippity top of the roof. When you go in the house, you go all the way to the top of the roof, and you just kind of like put a little something over it. It starts to make it focused a little bit more.
Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dad. Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dad friends.
Yeah, so something just like that, it actually kind of makes the vocal feel a little bit more clear. Not necessarily bright, but now you start to hear a little bit more clarity though. Pay attention.
Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dad. Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I'm flying to.
All right, so after that, we're gonna look at the RVox, just using it to bring a little bit of body and presence to SoFaygo. I like to go with the RVox specifically because if his vocal is a little bit skimpy, it's a little bit weak, I haven't ate all day. If his vocal is a little bit hungry, a little bit skimpy, I like to use the RVox to bring in some of that body to it, you know, because this type of compressor, it will squeeze that mid-range, you feel me? It will bring that presence. So it's different ways to get in presence. Usually when you think about presence, you usually think about like mid-range energy. You feel me? Like mid-range energy, somewhere around like 1K all the way to like 5K, 6K, depending on the person's voice. The mid-range is what makes things presence. The mid-range is what brings stuff closer to the listener. You feel me? So the human ear is adapted to when we was in the jungle and shit hunting, and the baby started crying, wah, wah, our ears is tuned to that frequency, that mid-range frequency. So, you know, it's different ways of getting presence. But usually when I hear somebody who got a skinny voice like SoFaygo, I'm gonna use the RVox to bring in a little bit of that body.
Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends. Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends.
All right, after that, we're using a little bit of the fresh air. This plugin reminds me about Mr. Clean, you know, like that washing, you know, that mopping of fluid that you put. It reminds me of Pine Sol and shit because it just brings in that fresh air to the vocal, you know, a lot of clarity. So with SoFaygo, knowing that his vocal is bright, I'm precautious of using the high air because the high air is like a high shelf. I used a little bit more of the high air mid presence because this one kind of gives a little bit more presence to the vocal, you feel me? So yeah, let's listen to what it sound like.
Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dad friends. Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with.
Okay, after that, we have a de-esser here to kind of counteract that. So whenever I use the fresh air, I always put a de-esser all the way up at the mosquito frequency.
Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dad friends. Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dad friends.
And then after that, I used the Kramer tape on SoFaygo's vocal, you feel me? I kind of like a counter move. to doing that de-esser, and I only use just a little bit. This kind of gives a little bit more weight to SoFaygo's vocal, you feel me? So I'm adding in a little bit of body, not through EQ but through saturation, understanding that the tape is going to give a little bit of warmth, and also it feels like it gets a little bit brighter. Most important thing is I turn off the noise, turn off the wow and flutter. I don't want his vocal to bounce around too much. This is more like an ambient sound, a song where he's singing, he's extending his notes, and I don't want none of that snack, crapple, and pop Reese's Pieces buttercup type of sound, like popping in between. That's not the sound we're going for. Usually if I was going for that sound, I would push a little bit wow and flutter. But yeah, just very light saturation using that Kramer tape. And of course, it's smoothing out, 15 IPS. So my vocal is really bright towards the end, and I'm just kind of balancing out everything.
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my feel when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends.
All right, after that with SoFaygo, I used another Kramer tape, but I use this as a delay. So, the thing about Studio Rack is that all these plugins, like once you hit a parallel split, this column right here extends the chain. You feel me? For example, like if I turn it off.
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my feel when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case. Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my feel when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I...
Yeah, so this is pretty much like an extension of the chain. That's why I always keep it at 0 pretty much, you feel me? Like it's like an extension of the chain, and the rest of these are the parallel splits. So the thing about it, use the Kramer tape, and I use this slap delay, and I didn't roll off too much top because I wanted to give a sense of ambience. That's what makes SoFaygo's vocal a little bit different. It has a nice little bit of like a nice little bit of clarity in the delay. So let me show you that.
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my feel when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut. Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my feel when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my...
I love using just a little delay like that on SoFaygo's vocal because it kind of just spreads the vocal, makes it feel a little bit more ethereal. Like when I hear SoFaygo, I'm thinking about he's like in a really big space, something like really epic, him being outside or something like that, And after that, the Kramer tape was good too, because even though it's a hi-fi delay, it's still tape, so it's still rolling off a little bit of top too. So it's the delay is not harsh. I don't want to overwhelm the listener with too much brightness. Okay, after that, we have an Reverb. For SoFaygo, I just use the hall, then I use the chorus as well. I like to use a chorus, especially like on Valhalla, vintage delay, right? I always use a preset I always use is like the chorus space. I use that mode. Because when you use a chorus space up against a really auto-tuned vocal, it's like auto-tune is a modulator, right? It takes like the notes and the frequencies and it puts it here, okay, puts it there, it puts it back in the scale, right? So auto-tune is a modulator, but then I like to use something like a chorus stomp, which is another modulator, right? And it's like auto-tune has got the vocal go up and flowing, and then the chorus has got it up and flowing, and it kind of makes it feel like to where you can't even hear the auto-tune. Some people would say it's called a phase cancellation. So you don't got to worry all about that, but just know if you do put in a little phaser or just a little droplet of a flanger, maybe on your delay, maybe on the lead vocal itself, just something that can't be heard, but sometimes it can make the auto-tune smoother. So that's a gem that I have for, making auto-tune smoother, putting a little flanger, chorus, or phaser on your reverb.
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my feel when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends. Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my feel when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my... Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my feel when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends.
Always a very important thing too with these type of rappers is how much water are you putting in the bucket. You got to manage how much water that you got inside the whole song, because let's say I can't have a stupid huge reverb on my lead vocal if I know my adlibs are like yeah, and I want them to feel big with that reverb, so that's why I put a sidechain on it. You got to manage how much groceries are you putting into the bag. You got to manage how much water are you putting into the bucket. You feel me? So a doubler stomp. I like doubler stomp too, because this is coming back to what I was just saying about the flanging chorus, like when you start to put a modulator on top of another modulator and they're kind of like swimming and stuff like that. It's like when you take your hands and you start doing this and you start going so fast, like if somebody was to take their hands and start moving fast, right? Like this is the auto tune and this is like the chorus, like you wouldn't see it. So it's like the same shit with your ears, and that's why I always keep using like doubler stomp, because it has like a phaser type of thing in it.
Flying in space like I'm Jetson. Black is my feel when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in it. Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends.
Yeah, so that's kind of like that concept right there too. And importantly too, with my doubler, trying to get back some of that low end of SoFaygo's voice, I extended the low end, you feel me? I didn't cut off too much low end. Sometimes people have doublers and they do like that, boom. I'm strategic about it. I let the doubler, double the whole vocal. That's what it's doing, is doubling it, right? And I let the low end stay in there, and that's how I get some more of that body back into SoFaygo's vocal through the doubler, you feel me? So it's kind of like the body is there, but it's swimming and all that stuff like that. It's kind of like a whale, you feel me? So RVox, as a parallel compressor, I like this a lot, bringing more weight into SoFaygo's vocal. I'm not trying to get more brightness out of any of my effects because his vocal is already naturally bright. We did a little something to get it bright, and boom, at this point, we just bringing in some of that thick peanut butter into the pot.
Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friend. Flying to space like I'm.
Yeah, so it's kind of like peanut butter. Sometimes people put that peanut butter into the pot, into the oatmeal to make it thicker, to make it, you feel me, to make it a little bit thicker, like the cake batter. Sometimes they put certain ingredients in cake batter to make it thicker because they don't want it to be skimpy. So as an engineer, you're like a chef because depending on what ingredients you use, EQ, compression, doubler, you can make a vocal thicker or you can make it a little bit more skimpier, right? So if his vocal is already kind of skinny and he hitting them high notes, that's already two things right there that's telling me before I apply any processing, okay, cool, I gotta figure out a way to make it thicker, you feel me? I gotta make this cake batter a little bit thicker. I need to throw a little bit, a couple eggs in there. I need to throw a couple more flour. I need to not put in as much water, into it as well, you feel me? So meta flanger on the adlibs, perfect, 100% SoFaygo adlibs, boom, put a flanger on that bit. Put a REQ as well, and of course I push that top because I want to have the adlibs be a little bit heard in that dense mix. A little bit of presence with the RVox, SSLE channel as well, rolling off top and bottom, bringing in some compression.
Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friends. Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on.
And with my adlibs, they're stupid, overly compressed. So that's kind of how I'm creating a little bit of contrast. Okay, look at this flat basketball. Okay, look at this full basketball. Even though they're both basketballs and you associate them as being glued together because they're both basketballs, right? They have a different size. They have a different texture. They have a different density and volume. Like I'm using the compressor to clamp it down and flatten one out while the vocal is full of dynamics, So that's a great way of, compare and contrast for the listener type shit. Using a Reverb Big Body Hall default preset, we didn't care. I used the SSLE as a parallel compressor.
Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my dead friend. Flying to space like I'm Jetson. Black is my fit when I'm dressing. Got your back on my case when I step in. Been in the cut with my.
All right, and that's pretty much everything that we have for the video here today. So this preset comes with the lead vocal preset. It comes with the ad-libs. It comes with a 2-track juicer. It comes with the mastering preset. So I just want to say thank you very much for being a great part of my YouTube family. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Somehow I got through this video without dissing a FL Studio YouTuber. I am making progress, all right? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and drop more suggestions for artists down below, all right? Appreciate y'all now. Peace.